Given what we are seeing and the elevated pressure, what do you think firms can do to balance commercial objectives and their compliance obligations?
I mean, I think generally speaking, there's a couple of simple things that we can do. And I mentioned one earlier, which was just be cautious when there's bulk transfers happening. It's okay for a bulk transfer to happen, but then you have to have a plan in place to address it after the fact. The fees are obviously a theme that we're seeing in all of these because ultimately the regulators are concerned that the clients are paying more than they should be. And it's important to just understand when an account switch occurs, there is an analysis that has to take place, and it needs to be meaningful. It needs to be a good review of the account and really take into consideration how the fees fit into this thing. And I'll give an example. If you've got a client who has 2 or 3 different types of stocks, let's say they inherited IBM or a few other things from their, grandparents, and they're just holding those, and you do an account switch, and all of a sudden that client is having to pay an advisory fee based on the, assets under management when there's really no management happening in that account, right? I think that's the kind of stuff we just need to be careful of. It's so easy for something like that to slip through the cracks. So this is where we really have to take the time to evaluate each one of these things, and really have a lot of this goes on educating the IARs who are meeting with the clients so that they know what to look for, and they're really the first line of defense in those things. So just really understanding what that is, and then making some good practical decisions, right? If it's just a few stocks, there's really not going to be any kind of investment management happening in that account. It just merely switched from, let's say, a brokerage account to an advisory account because the client wanted to stay with the advisor. I think it's a really good opportunity to not charge a fee on that account. Let it be, and maybe just charge the platform fees or whatever it might be, but don't charge an advisory fee, and do right by the client in those situations. Alternatively, if there is a strategy in place and there is a intention to sell those securities and reinvest in a variety of other securities, have that plan in place and execute it in a timely manner. So that we're not sitting there, the clients paying a advisory fee on those 2 or 3 stocks for an extended period of time. So I think those are all really big things that we can do. And I would say just not having good policies and procedures is always a concern as well. It's not something that we necessarily think about, but it is obviously, this is something that's on the regulators' radar. So we should be developing some processes and policies around what happens during this type of a scenario. And lastly, I would say none of this happened unless you document it. And that's the biggest part. So we have to document, and whether you want to do an old school way of just keeping notes in your CRM, or you want to use a tool that allows for the easy review and documentation and aggregation of all the data so that you can easily report. Lots of technology out there that can help you do this, and it's not that expensive, and I promise it's cheaper than the cost of enforcement.